What's going on, Guardians? It's Tizzle here. So in this video, I wanted to just do a little TWID breakdown because the one that dropped today is honestly really good. I am always kind of just working on build ideas and always just kind of testing things as they work in endgame. So a lot of these changes that are coming will actually be quite significant in the endgame. But before we get to the roaming super changes and the exotic armor changes, I do just want to touch on these artifact perks really quickly. If you didn't catch the live stream on Tuesday, they did detail these. So that's when I found out about them, and I actually made a build video taking advantage of the new column 5 perk, and I'll get to that in a second. But we have authorized mods melee. The armor energy costs of all armor mods affecting your melee are significantly discounted. So when they've had these in the past, like hands-on or heavy-handed, they normally cost 3. They're probably not now going to cost 1. So that's actually really good. I made my ultimate solar titan bonk build. It's like the best build for solo flawlessing dungeons in my opinion. And I actually run 3 heavy-handeds on there. So that will save you some energy, even though if you're tripling down, you still won't have more mod slots. But it's just nice for build flexibility and stuff. And then being able to run hands-on is actually going to be the bigger benefit on my helmet, because normally that costs 3. So now you can fit a siphon mod on there or something. So that one's going to be nice. Emergency flare. Emergency reinforcements consume all but 1 armor charge. So basically you'll always maintain 1 armor charge, which is nice. And emergency reinforcements, if you didn't know what that does, if we go to chest, grants 10% damage resistance, and then duration is based on the armor charges consumed. So if you had 3, you're going to get that 10% DR for 6 seconds, but now it's not going to consume all 3. It should just consume 2 armor charges. So that should be how that one's working. The thick of it, rapid final blows while you are surrounded grant you armor charge. So if you're a fan of my channel, you'll have seen my triple glaive build. That will be really good for that. I will get a build video out on it. It's just I want to take it into Birthplace of the Vile first. And that's kind of what I've been waiting on. So thank Bungie for time gating things like they usually do. But yeah, anyways, Birthplace of the Vile and all the GMs actually release on Tuesday. So actually, shout out to Bungie for listening. I know it sucks we have to wait till Act 2 to get the node, but it's better than Act 3 like it was last episode. So that's a nice change. But I digress. I'm waiting to get into Birthplace of the Vile with the triple glaive build, but this will come in handy for it. And then the boost is while you are surrounded, your weapons have increased handling. So better handling is always nice. Then you've got curative orbs. The first time you break a target shield or break the shield of a guardian using their super, you create an orb of power. So just an easy way to create an orb. And then it says the first time, so it doesn't say anything about matching. So where is shield break charge? Right here. So upon breaking a combatant shield with matching damage, you get armor charge, where this one says nothing about matching. So if there's activities with lots of just shields in general, then you'll be able to get a lot out of this mod. And then the boost is picking up an orb of power, elemental pickup, or a tangle, grants you a small amount of health. So we don't know the amount of health, but this will be really good on arc builds or anything that makes ionic traces, because you can make ionic traces very frequently. So that could be very strong, but you do have to boost it. And then arc compounding. Arc sources deal increased damage to blind targets. I'm thinking this will be around 10%. I'm hoping it's at least 10%. And that will pair really nicely with the build video that I just finished making, which is my Geomag Stabilizers build. If you are a fan of my channel, you might have seen me solo the GM Nightfall this week with it. Anyways, this will make it even stronger, and next week is Arc Surge. So I'm going to have that video out Saturday so you can kind of prep it, and this will pretty much be a must run with that. And then you can run Trace Evidence and the other one, which allows you to blind targets. So there'll be really good synergy there. Unfortunately, you have to run it boosted to make a blinding explosion. Retinal Burn, that's the name of it. And you can't run double boosts. So you could either run this boost for health from ionic traces, or in my opinion, you should run the Trace Evidence and Retinal Burn boost for blinding things and then deal more damage with arc. So that is the artifact perk preview out of the way. So now let's look at this. So they talk about just a lot of things they were doing behind the scenes. So let's start here. Starting with Act 2, we'll be changing the damage-based recharge parameters for all roaming supers against PvE combatants only, and increasing the amount of super energy gained when damaging combatants by roughly 3 times the amount it is today. That is significant to say the least. I have a build that I don't want to give away yet, but it very well could have damn near infinite supers if it plays how I think it will. So I'll definitely be in the lab testing next week, and hopefully get that build video out to you as soon as possible. I have so many builds backed up, so I'll get to them as quickly as I can. But yeah, that's going to be crazy. The intent here is that you are more likely to have a roaming super when it is needed for panic activation or to jump an enemy spawn point. Basically, they say, as a reference, if you were getting 3 to 5 Nova Bombs while playing an Advanced Nightfall, you can now charge around 6 or 8 Nova Warps. So roughly like double the super generation on roaming supers. And Nova Warp is actually really good in stuff like Onslaught. Back in Into the Light, I used Nova Warp for a 50 wave expert clear, and yeah, it was super good actually. It kind of surprised me how good it was. But we'll get to all the supers that are getting affected. But yeah, basically you're just going to have way higher uptime if you're being aggressive and slaying out with roaming supers. And then we respect that super choice is an essential part of build crafting, and not every encounter or strike is a perfect fit for every roaming super. So like I said, it is really good in Onslaught and probably will be in Tomb of Elders as well. But we do think this change entices a fire team to bring a roaming super where they otherwise might not have. And then this is crazy. I'm also probably going to make a video after these changes on this. But in addition to this, we're upping the damage roaming supers do against champions by 30 to 55% depending on the super. This roughly brings all roaming supers to a similar damage profile against champions and will give them a distinct advantage in your next Grandmaster Nightfall over a one-off super. So yeah, there's certain supers in this game that are already nasty as hell. So 30 to 55% is significant, but that is only to champions. I want to clarify that, or at least it should be. Who knows with Bungie spaghetti code? But yeah, just against champions. But that's still really, really good, because another video I want to work on is how good Song of Flame is. And a big reason it's so good is because you can use it against champions, because you can use your weapons to re-stun. So say you're using it against a barrier champion, they throw up their shield, then you can stun them with your weapon and then keep doing damage with Song of Flame, where all these no other roaming super in the game allows you to do that. So they're really hindered there, because especially as a solo player, you don't have someone that can stun that champion while you're in the roaming super. So roaming supers, in my opinion, are already good, but that is a big knock against them, and why so many people run one-off supers is because you have to stun the champion and then you just want to get your super damage out as quickly as possible. Like think Twilight Arsenal. You can stun a champion and then quickly bust out that T-Crash or Twilight Arsenal, and it pretty much cleans up the champion in one super activation. Where in a roaming super, it's going to have time to either become unstunned if it's like an unstoppable, or it's going to put up its barrier shield and then you're screwed if it's a barrier. So this is significant because you may be able to, I doubt you could take them out initially, but if you get that first stun on like a barrier champion and then pop it, I'm hopeful that you're able to take it out. So anyways, let's look at what it affects. It affects Arc Staff, which is actually an underrated super. Golden Gun, except for Celestial Nighthawk, which is fair. Spectral Blades, which are ass, and I still think they'll be ass after this change. And Silk Strike. So Silk Strike I'm very excited about, because it's actually so good already. I soloed the Lake of Shadows GM with Strand Hunter, like last time it was in rotation, quite a while ago now. But anyways, Silk Strike puts in work. It's already an amazing super, and now you're going to be getting it much more often because of these cooldown changes, and they'll be doing more damage against champions. So again, once you like stun the champion, hopefully then you can just take it out in one super before it becomes unstunned. Then you've got Fist of Havoc, which again, I still think is not a very good super. And a lot of that is just thanks to, like when you do that knee strike, it often like pushes enemies around, and yeah, that's just Destiny physics. But Burning Maul is exceptionally strong already, especially with Roaring Flames ×3 and Syntheseps. So Syntheseps buffs you by 1.5 times, and then Roaring Flames ×3, I can't remember it off the top of my head, but if we look here, let me see, Roaring Flames, where is it? right here. So 73% increased ability damage at ×3. So if you stack up a Burning Maul and pair it with Syntheseps, you're going to be doing incredible damage. And again, you're just going to have that up more and more. So I used to solo a lot of Lost Sectors, and Burning Maul was excellent for that. Yeah, it can absolutely demolish enemies. So very, very strong. And again, this 30 to 55% is only on champions. So it's not like it's getting a huge buff overall, but it will to champions, so that's going to be really good. Hammer of Soul has always felt pretty weak without Syntheseps, so that's a nice little change to see. Sentinel Shield, that's nice. Blade Fury is really good with Synthos, and obviously Glacial Quake is as well. So Glacial Quake is already like the highest total damage super in the game. It's already nasty as hell, and now it's going to be able to deal with champions that much easier. So again, very, very good. Look out for those. Prismatic Titans are eating really good. Obviously, they're already like busted as hell with Consecration. But yeah, now when you're in a Glacial Quake super, you'll be able to take out champions easier. And then Blade Fury, like I said, back when Strand Surge was all the rage a couple seasons ago before Final Shape, Blade Fury, just like Silk Strike, feels really, really good. So now with it doing more damage to champions, that's going to be amazing. And then we have Warlock Stormtrance, Daybreak, Nova Warp, and Winter's Wrath. I'm a notorious Winter's Wrath hater. It's crap, but it sort of does center around the build that I alluded to earlier on. So having that quicker cooldown with Winter's Wrath could be really strong. Nova Warp, again, it's kind of slept on. Like, it's honestly good. It's just no one ever runs it because it's not on Prismatic. And then if you're running Void, you're usually probably doing like Controverse Hold or something. So you're just going to chuck out your grenade and then chuck out a Nova Bomb. But Nova Warp, like they kind of mentioned that some activities are better suited to it. If it's an add dense, like many waves like Onslaught is, Nova Warp is actually really good. Daybreak is somewhat weak without Dawn Chorus, but just the fact that it's going to have a quicker cooldown makes the Dawn Chorus build that much better. And then Storm Trance. I'm working on a Crown of Tempest build right now. So Storm Trance getting a buff to champions specifically is really, really nice because, yeah, it just can't even like kill a champion in one stun, even if it's like an overload. Because I think when you cast Storm Trance, it sends out Jolt. So you could like cast it, Jolt and Overload, and then lay on it the entire time with Storm Trance, and it doesn't kill the Overload. Unless it's Arc Surge, then you might. But anyways, this is going to be so much stronger. Crown of Tempest, again, working on that build video. Just waiting for all the GMs to release so I can get some better footage, some updated footage. I did solo Insight Terminus with it last season in like 20 minutes. Crown of Tempest goes really, really hard, and Storm Trance is a really fun super. Like, if I take you back all the way to like launch of D2, Arc Web, Storm Trance was like some of my favorite stuff to run in Crucible and just out in the wild in PvE. So I'm really happy that it's coming back and it's going to have quick cooldowns. Again, a really nice one for something like Onslaught. And this can be paired on Prismatic as well, because Storm Trance is on the Prismatic subclass. So like I said, watch out for Crown of Tempest. It's going to be really good. And I didn't really touch on Arc Staff very much, and that's because they're also changing Raid Influx. So that's where I wanted to talk more about Arc Staff. So it's our goal that the two Arc Staff exotics, Blight Ranger and Raid Influx, have distinct identities. Blight Ranger is rooted in defense, and we want Raid Influx to be all about offense. However, we felt it could benefit from a little more punch, especially in harder activities. So if we look at... Damn, I lost it now. I had it up. If we look at Raid Influx right now, what it does is it extends the duration of your Arc Staff. And no one's really using Arc Staff because it's Arc Hunter, where Prismatic Hunter just does what Arc Hunter does, but better. So Elemental PR. So Synapse Junction. So hits grant a stack of Synapse Junction for 5 seconds, up to a max of 3 stacks. So basically right away you get 3 hits. So just start off with your combo, and now you're up to a 46.2% damage increase. So these are the damage increases. Now it's going to roughly 20%, up to a max damage increase of 70%. So we're going from 46.2 to around 70%. That is massive, and it's getting that even bigger damage increase of 30 to 55% on champions alone. So this thing is going to be a monster. If you're a fan of Chablo91, way back in the day, he did a Raiden Flux GM. I can't even remember which one. It might have been that one that's returning to us. Inverted Spire, I think. And he was actually stun locking the barrier champs, because when you do that, like that light attack, heavy attack, palm attack, that one that deals all the damage, it was actually able to stun lock barrier champs. So I kind of touched on that when I talked about Song of Flame, how you can stun champions. If this does allow you to stun lock them so they can't put up their shield, then you're going to be able to take out like multiple champions in one stun. Or if you're in a fire team, you're going to be able to have your teammates stun them and you just go in with your Raiden Flux, and it's going to be nasty. And you're getting more Arc Staff supers because of the super regeneration changes. So Raiden Flux is going to be eating really well. Again, I'm a huge fan of that. Going back to like Spire of Stars, that was the damage meta on that boss, was like having 5 Raiden Flux guys and 1 Healing Rift Warlock. So yeah, Raiden Flux looking to be really strong. Ballador's Wrathweavers. So right now it does 100% more damage on the Shatter, which is actually quite a bit. Like this thing does hit pretty hard, but who's running Ballador's when you can run Osmiomancy or Rhymecoat Raiment, right? So they're buffing this up to 150%. So maybe it's going to be enough. Personally, I don't think it's going to be enough. I think Shadebinder kind of needs still more. When you cast out those little icicles to freeze everything, I think it uses up too much super, personally. So it just doesn't last quite long enough. I don't know what they got to do to change it. But anyways, Ballador's, it's a nice buff that it's getting. Also, Telesto is getting a 20% damage bonus in PvE, which is really nice. And then we've got Point Contact Cannon Brace, one of my personal favorites. One of the first videos I made after the final shape. It's what I took through. So I only ran the final shape campaign on my Titan, and I was using Point Contact Cannon Brace because I looked at the fragments that you were getting with Prismatic at launch, because you had to unlock a bunch of the fragments, right? And Point Contact paired really nicely with it. And anyways, I have a build video on my channel if you want to check out my build, but here's what they're doing to it. We felt that the lightning strikes provided by Point Contact Cannon Brace are the main focal point of using the exotic, but they lack build crafting depth beyond being visually flashy. So in Act 2, we are putting more emphasis on them contributing to your overall gameplay loop instead of relying completely on Thunderclap defeats. So applied lightning bolts now do 100% increased damage over base, up from 50%. So just a nice little buff. Maybe it shows what they do right now. So basically what they do right now, Thunderclap kills grant fixed melee ability energy based on the enemy tier. So if you were killing high health targets or many targets, these were the percentages you're getting back. So you could get a lot of your melee back. I soloed the Fallen Saber Strike with this, and you get a ton of melees. And then Thunderclap strike enemies dealing 200 damage. Lightning damage is increased by 50% while amplified. So now it's like 100% increased over base. So it's going to be outputting more damage. And then lightning strikes defeat now also refund melee energy, which this says they do already. So maybe it's a bit of a typo. But basically reduce Thunderclap refund by roughly 10% to compensate for increased energy gains on average. So this reads a little weird, and we'll have to actually play with them to see how they are. But I've also made an insurmountable Skullfort build that just relies on thunderclapping everything. But in high-end content, where you can't like one-shot everything, so the problem with insurmountable Skullfort, if you don't get the kill, you're out of a melee. Where on Prismatic, you can kind of alleviate that, because then if you lose your melee, you just pop Transcendence and you get your melee back. But with Point Contact Cannon Brace, if it's really ad dense, then you're just going to be able to be doing a buffed Thunderclap because of the lightning strikes while still getting the payoff. And if you don't kill the thing, you're still getting energy returns because basically the gameplay loop, instead of relying on Thunderclap defeats. So again, I don't know if I'm reading this 100% right, but basically I think hits will count now instead of just defeats. Let me just read this one more time. Yeah, it says defeats now also refund melee energy, but they must mean hits. I think that's what's going on here. because defeats already refund energy. Thunderclap kills. So anyways, sorry, I should have read that a little closer. But I think it's just going to be on hit now, which is very, very good for point contact cannon brace. So that's a nice buff. So basically, that's all I wanted to talk about. And like usual, I rambled for like 20 minutes. But I did just want to point out that these are actually going to be very significant changes in endgame. Especially if you get an initial stun on the champion. All you have to do is like stun them immediately, and then yeah, you're just gonna be going to town. So we get all the Grandmasters with the launch of Act 2. So obviously I'll be like testing a bunch of stuff. I gotta do Tomb of Elders. Like I've got a lot on my plate, and unlike Aztecross, I don't have a team of 20 working for me. It's pretty much just me, and I have like 1 or 2 editors that help me out with some build videos sometimes. But even then, I have to script everything, come up with the builds. Like I do basically everything myself, and then I just send them the stuff to edit into a video, and they do a great job. Shout out to my editors, by the way, Mysterious and Nuktuk. You guys are awesome. I love you guys. But yeah, I'm just one guy, and these are a lot of things to test. I'm sure Aztecross and his team will have lots of like before and afters, which is great. That's like about the only content of his that I actually watch because it's actually useful to me. But I also do go in and test those things myself, and I like to test it in high-end content like GMs and stuff. And like I said, I've used enough of these things in GMs messing around, and they're already quite good. So these buffs are going to be significant, and it's going to give you a reason to run roaming supers. And that's why I wanted to make this video, to let you know that, yeah, these changes that are coming are actually worth like looking into. And we may, I mean, one-off supers are still going to be great. They obviously have a big place in like raid boss damage rotations, because I mean, our weapons are so strong now, you're not relying on your super for boss damage. But for, yeah, general play like GMs and Onslaught and stuff, these changes are going to be really, really nice, and I'm really excited to get my hands on them. So that's it. Just wanted to make that breakdown, and I hope you enjoyed and found it informative. And if you did, a like and subscription would be greatly appreciated. And I will catch you in the next one. Take care.